The Super 8s are on our doorstep right now. So we are right ahead of the Super 8s before South Africa play the USA in the first match of the Super 8s fixtures. We know how it's going to obviously work. We know that we're playing three teams in the Super 8s portion of this particular leg of the T20 World Cup. And we're going to see how South Africa fares after a very wobbly opening group stage, I would say, when it comes to South Africa, when it comes to this team, when it comes to the way they performed. We had a lot of negative comments, but we also had some positives to walk away with as well from a mindset perspective, you could say, particularly with the bowlers. But there's a lot to talk about ahead of the game against the USA. It's a massive match. USA are obviously on the top of the world when it comes to their confidence. I don't think they would have thought that they would have gotten to this stage, but we're going to get a little bit more of an expert, I would say, on this matter, coming to talk with us. He hasn't been on the show in a very long time, so guys, I want you to smash that like button for him when he appears on the screen. I don't know why I have the wrong graphic over here. It's supposed to be the preview. So let's get into today's show. We're going to be chatting about the fixture against the USA. We're going to talk about obviously team lineups. We're going to talk about players to watch, players to look out for from a USA perspective. There are two particular names that are obviously going to jump out because we do know how former South Africans perform against South African teams. That happens whenever we play any other team in the world. They always seem to step up from the Wagners to the Rudolf van der Merwes you can name so many of them out there that have been previous South Africans and have stepped up against South Africa when they do play them. We will mention them a little bit later on the show as well. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the weather report. It does seem like there's going to be some rain tomorrow at the venue, but I don't know how much it's going to affect the game. Before the West Indies series, I also gave some insight into that, and it went completely the opposite to what the weather reports said. So I'm not going to hold don't keep my word as the truth, as the gospel for this, because it's not 100% the case. We never know with the weather reports over there in that side of the world when it comes to this particular fixture. But we're going to get into everything that we can when it comes to this show. And thank you guys for joining us on today's show. But before we get going, before we get started, please subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell for all future videos. Please, we are getting closer and closer to that 5,000 subscriber mark, and we're really going to need your help to get there. So please go ahead and take initiative in this and share this channel with many other South African cricket fans that you know out there as well. You also need to smash that like button and comment. It's very important that you guys do so, because that with the new algorithm on YouTube, they're going to require you guys to, if you guys still want to see these videos pop up into your feeds and your recommended feeds, you need to smash that like button and interact with our videos and engage. So please go ahead and do so that we can spread the word far and wide. And don't forget to subscribe to our magazine. It's 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. And you guys can go get it. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. We've also launched something new on Cricket Fanatics magazine from a sales perspective. If you have a product or service that you're trying to launch or you're trying to sell to a cricket audience, we have launched the Cricket Fanatics magazine marketplace. It's an amazing initiative that we put in place to help you sell your products and services. The amazing thing about it is that there's no cost up front. We do all the sales pages and everything for you, and you only pay us once you start making sales. So there is no risk involved for you to try and have a go with us and put your products and services in our marketplace. The link is in the description. So please tell your friends and your family that have businesses, that have cricket businesses, that are selling products or services in the cricket sphere or sporting sphere. Let them know to get in touch with us, and we can go right ahead and start doing that and helping you guys out making sales effectively and affordably. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. I'm looking forward to discussing this game with you guys. A very good evening and welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your preview show. I'm your host, Khalid Moeddin, and this is the show where we talk about everything that has to do with the Super H, the first match of the Super H, South Africa versus the USA. And today I am joined by a special guest, been there right from the beginning on this channel. He's supported us. He writes in the magazine, he writes on the website. He's been a massive contributor to Cricket Fanatics magazine and to the channel as well. Sabai, welcome to the show, bro. How are you doing first and foremost? So what is it like? How's it like there over there in the States? Tell me about how things are going on your side.
Morning, Khalid. Well, I just drove 70 kilometers and now I'm parked and I'm ready to get started on this show. So it's already been a pretty eventful morning. And yeah, I feel like this World Cup has already flown by so far. You blink and it's already the Super Eights.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the United States and how they've actually taken to cricket? I saw this article, and I want to just run it by you because obviously you'll know a little bit more about American sports than I do. I mean, the other night I was watching ESPN, I was watching Major League Baseball. I was luckily enough to be able to see 3, 4 home runs, which is not something that is often seen so after each other in one particular match. But I saw an article saying that they feel that the American public, with the way that the conditions are now, low scoring, not a lot of sixes, they feel that that is going to be a positive for the American public to get into cricket because it's not like the IPL where you saw a six every single over or every second ball or third ball. It's a lot harder to get a six, and that's maybe to try and pull in the baseball fans who don't often see home runs as often as we would see sixes. Do you go with that narrative, and what's your thoughts on how the American public is taking to cricket in the States?
Okay, you cut out a little bit. Can everybody hear me properly? We good?
I think he's
Yeah.
disconnecting.
Okay. Um, Wait. Let me
I
let me
hope he's
rejoin
gonna
real
get
quick.
back with us. I think he's just reconnecting at the moment. Um, Let me just hold on for about to come back. Yeah, so I asked him an important question about that. I was watching, like I said, I was watching Major League Baseball the other day, and on ESPN cricket, on ESPN, and yeah, I saw something that we don't often see. Let me just get a buy back in here. A
Okay.
buy, you back? Cool.
Yes, and
Um,
I heard
yeah.
everything you asked. So I think to a large extent I would agree. Because if we look at the IPL, there were way too many high scoring games, and even though it's like a flagship event of T20 franchise cricket around the world, this time around it felt it kind of felt it got a bit boring really fast because it was the same old stuff going on. But then we come to the T20 World Cup, and the conditions vary a lot more, and you see lower scores, and you see bowling lineups from both teams fighting as hard as they possibly can in order to defend that. So I think it's a very welcome change, and as far as the American public is concerned, I've got a pretty interesting story. So the other day, the HVAC guy came to fix my AC, and he walked in on me watching the USA versus India match, and he was telling me he only knows like very little about cricket. So, and I was like, you know what? If you want to spend like an extra 15, 20 minutes watching the game before you fix my AC, you're more than welcome to do so. And in the process, I explained the game, and he seemed to understand it fairly quickly. So I think if we use that one personal experience, I feel like cricket's slowly but surely making progress. I mean, there's long way to go until it becomes like more mainstream compared to like the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and so forth. But I think every little bit of progress counts.
Mhm. Yeah, because I saw how that's supported, and it's incredible. Okay, yes, there's over 500 million, 600 million people in the USA, so it does make
It's
it a little bit
3:30. But yeah,
330. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
so like it does make
fairgrounds.
a big difference when it comes to the amount of population and the amount of people to fill out a stadium of 100,000 or 50,000, 60,000, 100,000. Should it be a lot easier for people with that population than in South Africa, where it's only 60 million people. It's a little bit different when your sports are like dividing the people. But from from a viewership perspective, when I'm watching it at home and seeing the stadiums, and I know that particularly the Bangladesh game was insane, the support. Do you feel that a lot of the more of the Asian teams, because they are familiar with it at home, that's why we're seeing that type of turnout in the stadiums for those teams?
I mean, if we look at Team USA, like half the team is of Indian background, and if you take the India Pakistan game, that stadium was almost sold out. I mean,
Mhm.
we saw supporters from both sides. They were, pulling for their respective teams to win. So I think among the subcontinent community in the U.S., I'd say there's a pretty good fan following of cricket.
Mhm. Okay, so let's get into this game. Okay, so we know that South Africa is going to be playing the USA 4:30 tomorrow, South African Standard Time. I'm always going to give you the South African Standard Time for that because obviously this is South African Cricket Channel. I just want to go through some of the nitty gritties around this particular game. So first and foremost, at the stadium itself, at the North Sound Stadium, yeah. There, I looked at some of the scores. I know you probably would have looked at some of the scores as well. Thereby,
Hmm.
quite low scoring, flat. It seems to be flat pitches, spinner friendly. That there hasn't been the highest score there was in this World Cup so far that was played is 150 odd. So it doesn't look like it's going to be a big scoring wicket again. And this World Cup hasn't seemed to be the case until we saw what West Indies did with the over 200. Um,
Yeah.
but but generally speaking, it hasn't necessarily been that. So from my perspective, when I'm looking at this game, I think we shouldn't make the same mistake that we made in the last game by not picking two spinners. I think we should pick two spinners, in my opinion, for this particular game. I don't know where you're sitting with regards to South Africa and what you do with the team lineup. Let's start there.
Well, I do agree when it comes to two spinners, but I want to talk a little more about the approach. Like what I feel like more power pack batting lineups have gotten a pretty good reality check so far in this World Cup. I mean, you look at India against Pakistan; they only scored 119 runs batting first. Even South Africa. I mean, there's a lot of talk about big hitters in Heinrich Klaassen, Tristan Stubbs, and David Miller. And even though they have contributed well, they've kind of had to rein it in because of the conditions. And obviously, the top three, they're still looking for runs. I mean, we saw Reza Hendricks score what 43 from 49, but even
Mm,
then, he wasn't looking at it like at his best compared to how he's been like over the last 18 months or so. So
mm.
I think yeah, I think if the top three can get runs, it'll be a very timely confidence booster. I would have preferred it to happen at least 1 or 2 games ago. Too bad it didn't, but I feel like on the whole, the Proteas have handled pressure a lot better than in previous tournaments. So I think this could possibly be a good thing.
Yeah, and this is cricket. We know that, and especially in T20 cricket, I would say this form can happen like that. It changes so quickly. The fact, to me, I look at the brighter side of things, and my more optimistic mind is going to talk here when I say that I know that Quinton has a knock in him at any time. He's a type of player that out of nowhere will score runs, or kind of like Randy Orton. So he's like
I mean, you
comes out of
only have to
nowhere.
look as far as the ODI World Cup, right? He knew. I mean, he had decided he was going to bow out of the format, and he scored 3 centuries in the World
Yeah.
Cup. Like he was playing every game like it was his last for South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. So he comes out of nowhere most of the time when it comes to those type of performances. Now Riza, I think, is coming into form at the perfect time. I think that it was a tough knock for him, and I like the way that the fact that he battled to that 43. So that was a positive for me in that from that perspective. We saw some shots being played. I do think their approach as an opening pair, though, on these wickets, they need to learn how to run between the two wickets a lot better. That is something that needs to be improved, and I think they will work their way into form. Aiden Markram, he's been terrible form, but he shows these patches of
Yeah.
like great shots, and you think it's a typical Aiden Markram situation. But I do feel that he can come in and win us a game at any moment. So I think the fact that they started poorly and we still won matches is a positive for South Africa because, as we know with cricket, good form is just around the corner. And generally speaking, players go through those dips. They'll have terrible form and then hit a good patch of form. Particularly these three, because they are the type of players that are less X factor than more. They're more. purple patch type of players. They're more form players. Quinton de Kock, when he does get into form, he starts going on a little bit of a run and then dips again. Riza Hendricks is known to score consecutive great scores when he gets into form. Aiden Markram similarly does the same thing. Whereas a Heinrich Klaassen and a David Miller are the type of guys that can win your game at any moment, and they're more of X factor type of players than form players, in my opinion. And then Stubbs is still young. I think he's still developing. He's been he's been he's been hitting like a good wicket, or good consistency now. He hasn't been great and he hasn't been bad. So he's like in the middle there. And I feel that he just needs that extra step with regards to that. But we're gonna need our top six to perform. If we want to start winning games comfortably.
Khalid, you said something about running between the wickets. I was about to say that next. Rotating strike is going to be super super important, especially at this stage. I mean, again, I'm going to refer to the India Pakistan game. Pakistan had 120 runs to chase, and in these small chases, if you can get singles and doubles as often as you can, that's going to take away the pressure quickly. And if you look at Mohammad Rizwan's knock, 31 from 44, 1-4 and 1-6, and 24 dot balls. You can't
Mm,
play that many dot balls, even if, I mean, if you're going to anchor the innings, perfectly understandable. But you still have to find a way to score quickly if you're not, scoring your boundaries. So I think
mm,
I think if we look at those previous results, that's something the South Africans can definitely learn from and apply heading into the Super Eights. I mean, at this stage, there's zero room for error. Like, if you lose a game, you're already playing catch up big time.
yeah.
Only
Now looking
because
at
you only
the
play three times, right?
now, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So now looking at the scores, of course, we're going to try and figure out if you bat first, what the winning total will kind of be. Now Scotland scored 153 for three on this particular wicket, batting second, chasing Oman's 150 for seven. So that means that if Oman and Scotland can score 150 plus on this wicket, then South Africa should be able to aim for that as a minimum. But then again, on the flip side, you've got England versus Namibia, and England only scoring. England scored 122 for five in 10 overs only because they had to obviously chase down a low total from Namibia's perspective. So, or not chase down a total. I think the game was maybe reduced. If
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah, the game was reduced. So I think in a full game, about 140, 150 should be able to be a decent total on this wicket, given other games that we've seen now over here. There's not a lot to go by when it comes to the World Cup this year. When I go back to, you can go back to 2021 and 2013, etc., to see those totals. But I mean, the highest ever score was by Canada over here in 2021 is 190. I don't think it's going to be that type of wicket. I think we're going to see a wicket between 150, 160 maybe as a very, very safe total from a South African standpoint. Where do you think, what do you think will be a good total on this wicket batting first?
Yeah, I was thinking around the same 150, 160.
Mm,
But at the same time, I mean, even when you set yourself a target, I want to score X amount of runs in the 20 overs.
yeah,
That shouldn't make the batters do something, stupid, right? Because
yeah.
I mean, especially like when you're well set, you have to be able to bat through, and taking calculated risk is it's part of the process. But yeah, finding that intermediate will be key for the Proteas.
My bad.
And
Button.
welcome back. Okay, so are we gonna dive into Team USA?
Yeah, we're going
Okay,
to do that. We're going to do that. Okay, so first and
okay.
foremost, I want to just highlight the two players or four players or so, I would say, that are going to be key from a USA perspective. Monank Patel, I think, averaging 34, strike rate of under 38. He's someone that to look out for. 7 matches played. Someone like Shurab Netravalka,
Hmm.
10 matches played, 12 wickets. Economy is decent, but you have to give it to the two South Africans, don't you, Abai?
Yeah, I mean two very familiar names, Andries Gous and Shadley van Skalkwyk. They both used to play for the Knights, so it's very familiar names for a lot of people watching this. But yeah, I think as from a general standpoint, especially when it comes to Team USA, at least in the recent few years, we've seen a lot of associate players break through and get in various teams, and that sort of bridged the gap between some of the best associate players and the good players that are in the full member sides. And and some of the results in this T20 World Cup kind of reflect that. I mean, we saw USA beat Pakistan in a super over. Then we saw Nepal give South Africa and even Bangladesh a run for their money, and Canada beat Ireland. So it's all happening. I mean, there are no pushovers in this tournament at all.
There's not at all. So that's something that we can look forward to from a South African perspective. But I know if the United States have what they're known for, from my perspective, whenever I've seen the USA teams take the field in any sport that they play, even in sports that they are maybe new to, it's mentality. There's ultra positivity and belief in themselves too, that they can do anything is ultimately I think it's ingrown in within the United States fabric when it comes to any side. I think
Hmm.
it's sewn into the DNA. It happens with regards to basically anything. I mean, I heard, for example, when I listened to the ex Leeds coach, Jesse, what's his second name now? I forgot his second name, but his last name. But he used to coach Leeds, and he's American, and he spoke about the difference in mentality between Americans and English, for example. And I think South Africans have a very similar type of mentality when it comes to the general public, to the UK. Whereas the Americans are ultra positive about their self belief and in self, when it comes to their self belief and being positive to get results rather than focusing on the negatives. When it comes to that, do you think that is true when it comes to mentality and mindset, that belief that they can do anything?
I mean, the entirety of what you said just now, it reminds me of Aaron Jones's interview from like few days ago. I mean, he was saying, we know what we're capable of. I mean, even though on paper we may look like underdogs, but we aren't taking anything for granted, and we aren't going to get intimidated by big names on the other side, right?
Hmm.
So even though they are underdogs, I mean, they came into this tournament ranked, I think, 17th out of 20, but they've backed themselves to great effect, and they have the results to show for it as well. So so really, it's how do I say this? I think it's you can't take anyone or anything for granted, and uh, you got to take everything on face value and back
Hmm.
your skills, like, ultimately.
Yeah, 100%. And what South Africa's perspective, I think if they play their game, they do all the basics correctly, and our top two at least, our opening partnership can get a good score in the power play. I think we in a decent space. And I think that extra spinner, I think Shamsi is going to be a lot to handle for the USA. I think we should play
Hmm.
him. And that's why I'm really thinking that two spinners come into play. But who would you drop there? For me, from my perspective, if I'm going to play the two spinners, if I'm going to play Keshav and I'm going to play Shamsi, for me, the person that comes out over there is Kagiso Rabada. And that might be quite a massive call from a lot of people might be against me saying that. But I think that the most out of form bowler out of this group, even though this group has been fantastic. And I think even KG is coming into form quite nicely. But out of those players, I would take KG out, in my opinion, because of what Marco Janssen offers from a left armer perspective. I think the variation bowling up front and the way he's been bowling up front, I think it's going to be crucial to South Africa's set up when they in the game plan when it comes to the ball. But if you're going to bring in a second spinner, who do you take out, Abai?
Yeah, I think that pretty much sounds right. So if we were to logically narrow it down, you can't drop Janssen because he's the all rounder on the side. He bats at number seven, and if you include a spinner in his place, that's pretty much forcing the top six to all turn up on a regular basis, and and. And you got to factor in potential bad days, so that can't happen. And Otniel Bartman, he's been superb at the death. I don't see any plausible reason to switch him out of the side unless he gets injured. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So that leaves, let's see, Anrik Norkia and KG Rabada. I think Anrik Norkia's express pace definitely brings the X factor to the table, and he has the results to show for it. Um, Rabada didn't quite have the greatest game against Nepal, and in this game of fine margins, I think he's the one who's going to have to make room.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's a shock for me to say that because I'm a big KG fan and what he brings, but particularly in this format or in white ball cricket for South Africa, this for the last couple of years, he hasn't necessarily been the same KG that I always remembered. So he is starting to fall a little bit off form over there. How much time do you have with me about? Because if you want to give your final words, you can,
Yeah,
and
like
then I'll get in.
yeah, like a couple minutes.
Okay, give me
Yeah,
your final thoughts.
I think we've covered pretty much the majority of what we plan to cover. But yeah, as usual, I want to say thank you to those who have had a chance to read the reports I've written. I'll do the same for tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Yeah, I think I'm going to close up with yeah, more mentions about Team USA. So I think yeah, Aaron Jones is one to look out for. He's a brilliant spin hitter. I mean, we saw against Canada what he did, 10 sixes, right? So this batting lineup, they are definitely capable. Um, of course, Andres Gos, he will come across a lot of familiar faces in the opposition. He may know more than just a thing or two on how to play the bowling lineup. So I think all in all, the Proteas need to have a solid set of plans. They can't get flustered if something goes wrong early on. I mean, we saw the captaincy from Markham. Even though he's short on runs, he's led the team well. He isn't afraid to take a few extra risks in order to get the opening they need. I mean, we saw the field settings. He even sometimes sticks with bowling like
Mm,
consecutive overs for certain bowlers, even if
mm,
they have like one or two poor overs. So I think at the end of the day, uh, yeah, the Proteas are in a good spot. Just can't lose concentration. Can't let things slip. And looking forward to a solid game tomorrow. And hope the rest of you are as well. Thanks, Colin.
cool.
Great
Awesome,
and great
Miles.
to catch up as well.
Yeah,
It's been absolute ages, and
yeah, it's
it's
been
good to make it
ages.
here. It's good to make it here. That too on short notice. In fact, he told me like last night, "Are you going to be able to make it?" I'm like, I'll do what I can," and happy that it's all worked out. So
No, thanks a lot for
yeah.
making it work. But I hope you can come on the show again very soon. Just keep in touch with me. Let me know when you want to. I'll send you the link, and you can always join.
All right, take care, guys.
Cool. See you, man. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna get into the live chat now and see what you guys have had to say. You've heard my thoughts. You've heard about his thoughts. We've given you our teams. Let me see what you guys have to say about it as well. Burbick saying in Miller, we trust, of course. Big Miller fanboy over there. Lauren saying our rotation of strike has been atrocious. We offer way too many dot balls, and I've mentioned that on the show today. I said we need to improve that. That's always a way to get yourself out of a bad rut. I feel that finding the gaps and taking singles, etc., can help you find your momentum again. But it's easier said than done because for you to be able to manipulate the ball into gaps at will and take singles at will and take doubles at will, your timing needs to be correct. And most of the time, when your confidence is down, your timing's out. So it's all works together. But I feel that it is a lot easier to find your timing of by nudging balls around than going for massive shots and hitting that ball sweetly in the spot on the bat that it will fly to the boundary. So that should be the approach when it comes to finding their way back into form again. And I think that Quinton de Kock is someone that doesn't like to necessarily always take singles and stuff, but I think that might be a good way for him to approach it, just to calm his head down a bit. Sudika says Maharaj and Shamsi must play. We have to drop one of the paces, sadly. Nadika says if Markner performs at his best, South Africa will win everything. 100% true. Berwick says thoughts on Janssen at 7. I don't. So on wickets like this, where it's tough to bat and tough for a batter to find boundaries and maximums, Janssen at 7 is a worry. But he's all we have at the moment, so we have to just throw in our trust for him and back him. I think on wickets where it's a little bit easier to bat on, where the wickets aren't as slow, I think Marco thrives in those situations and he would be great as a 7. But this is a great learning curve for him, and I think it will only make him a better player in the future. Narika says tomorrow Markram will score 50 runs and Proteas will win. Tomorrow Markram will score 50 runs and Proteas will win. You can chant that. Lawrence says the Nepal game once again showed us how susceptible associate nations are against good quality wrist spin. So, in my opinion, Shamsi has to play tomorrow, even if it means Kesh misses out if we play one spinner. 100%. I think that's a great comment, and I think that's a great point. Shamsi would be the better matchup for the USA, and I agree with you. Burbick says, who do we think part-time spinner for SA? His best part-time spinner for SA, Riza, Markram or Stubbs. Could they collectively bowl for overs? I think Markram is 100% the guy, because Rob even said before the World Cup that he's more than just a part-time spinner. He actually rates his spinning higher than that. He actually rates him as a spinner in general. So I think that that's something that I feel should be looked at and should be understood. And I'm surprised that Markram hasn't bowled himself more in this tournament so far. But our spaces have been so brilliant. There's no need for that to happen. Wonderboy says, at a team that has a couple of South African players in, it always troubles us. House, 100%. I've said that at the top of the show as well. It always seems to be the thing that bothers us and is something that we struggle against, especially these two South Africans, because not only are they South African players, but they've played domestic cricket for a very long time against all of these players. They know them quite well. It's not like a South African situation where the player was like Lapaskachni, 10 years old, moved over to Australia and then became an Australian. It's not a situation like um, uh, Wagner or Neil Wagner. This is a completely different situation. These players have played domestic cricket for a very, very long time with all of these players. They know them well. Shirley van Schalkwyk is a very skillful bowler. And as well as Andries Gous, we know that he can smack that ball a long, long way. And I'm a bit scared about him taking on Marco Jansen, or particularly, I mean, he might not face Marco, dependable on the situation. But um, you've got to say that him playing against the likes of Andrich Nokia is going to be an interesting setup and an interesting lineup. That's going to be something that we're going to have to wait and see how that actually turns out, because I feel that the extra pace that Andrich has, on particularly on a wicket like this, it can be quite daunting when it comes to that. He is the type of player that does struggle a little bit against the swing. So I think Marco Jansen might be a great matchup against Gous when it comes to getting that ball to move around against Andries. I think that's going to be a great matchup, and I think that's going to be a brilliant thing from a South African standpoint. And I think we need to utilize that. And that's why I don't think Marco Jansen should be dropped, because he's the one bowler that actually offers a little bit of movement up front in the new ball. So that's something that I think we should look at. Smash that like button, please, people, as you come in. It's very important that you guys do so. And also subscribe if you're new. Lawrence says, I don't think we'll see two spinners tomorrow. I'm yet to see Rob drop an experienced player. We've seen it with Quinton de Kock. He doesn't seem to have it in him to drop Quinny. So I don't think he'll drop KG, in my opinion. Sam says, I think coaches like Rob considering on SA batters eating a lot of dot balls. Yeah, that's why I mentioned the running between the wickets. That's how you stop dot balls from happening. Andrews House is one player who really can hurt us. He's very good against high pace bowling. I just mentioned that as well. Kani says, Khalid, can you call that dumb Rob to help not to tell him not to drop Hartman? I don't think I'm not going to call Rob all the dumb. I don't think he will drop Hartman. If he knows what's best for the team, I don't think he will. I can understand why he's stuck with Quinton through these group stages, because an informed Quinton at this stage of the tournament will be brilliant. And I feel that these wickets, if the wickets were great or decent, and it was a lot easier to bat on, and Quinton was performing the way he has been, I think Rob would have dropped him. But I think because of the difficult wickets, on top of the difficult form that they're in, I think that's what kept Quinton a little bit safe, because batters all around the country were struggling, and particularly in New York. Burbick says, should we not be more confident as SA fans? The two Saffers playing for USA would get nowhere in the SA team. No. Yeah, I'm confident that the team can beat the USA, but we know the South African situation. It doesn't matter who the team opposition is, how whether they a minnow team or a lower ranked team or not. Those teams seem to be the teams that bother South Africa. We play our best matches actually against the better teams, in fact. But from a South African standpoint, yes, you're right. But I know that when a player is extra motivated to perform, it does a hell of a lot. Can make you very dangerous. Because in T20 cricket, you don't need to be the best player in the world to have a good performance. Let's just be honest about the game of T20 cricket. It has a lot to do with um, just being good on the day on a particular day. Your skill doesn't carry you as much as in Test cricket or in ODI cricket. I feel that in ODI and T20 in Test cricket, you can't. Luck doesn't really help you. Your basics don't really help you in a T20 game as much. I feel as it will help you, um, and the general technique doesn't really help you as much in T20 cricket as I feel it will help you in Test cricket. You need your technique and your basics to be spot on in those two formats compared to in T20 cricket. You see players that don't have the best of techniques still perform exceptionally well in this format. So anything can happen on the day in T20 cricket, and that's the thing that I think is interesting. Khalid, did they say practice today? When they practice, I put up their practice video that we got sent today. So at least on the live on the video on the YouTube channel. I'm worried they'll leave Batman and play KG. I hope that they don't. I have to say that I'm gonna be so pissed off if he selects two spinners but leaves out Batman. That would tell me a lot about Rob if that happens. I will be irritated as well because Batman by 100% is our best death bowler, and death bowling is a skill. The death bowling of Batman has won us majority of the close games, even though he might not have been the best bowler on paper in those particular matches, in those particular crunch moments when the scores were low, it was his overs that took us home. And I think that was crucial. Where in the past, we would see us throw away games. Wonderboy says, I remember Rob saying last year, World Cup in India, saying that he always prefers four paces on the park. Yeah, I know that he said that, but he did say this time around that he's going to pick according to conditions. So I'm hoping that he's going to stay true to that. Um, Burbick says T20 is simpler. You can bowl 6 average balls, and that's good over, for instance. Exactly my point. So, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Smash that like button, comment, share. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell for all future videos. I think we gave a nice in-depth discussion today about this particular game. We even got a buy on the show to give his thoughts from an American standpoint. So that is an awesome side of it as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Smash that like button, obviously subscribe and do all of those things as well. And don't forget what I spoke to you guys about at the beginning of the show about the marketplace. Check the link in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll be live directly after the game tomorrow. Let's hope that South Africa will win this one. And let's hope that the weather holds out as well from that perspective. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care and enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace.